nearing the end of the evening here, and I know I'm sad too. But before I go, I want to take a minute to tell you a little bit about myself, how I came to be here. I started my magical performance career, as I said, busking on a street corner, but the actual magic began a little before that. I was born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I bleed black and gold. I understand that not everybody does. That's fine. Nobody's perfect. So my very first magic trick at the hands of my grandfather. Now, my grandfather was not a magician, but he did know a few tricks. I am not a grandfather, but I think the grandfathers present would agree. Once you become a grandfather, it's sort of a rite of passage. You have to learn a trick or two. My grandfather was no exception. He had these really large hands, and they would amaze me time and time again. You know, I would go over and he would take a deck of cards. He could do that one-handed cut that I was doing earlier, and he could, but he put his hand in front, and you couldn't see the movement of the cards. His hands were that big. So he would show you a card, and then he'd take his banana fingers and put them in front of the deck, and he would do the cut, and then he would move his hand, and it looked like the card changed colors. It was really incredible. He had this marble egg that he got from a friend of his in the service. And he kept it in the drawer of the table next to his chair, and every time I would come over, he'd pull it out, and we'd play magic. Sometimes he would take the egg and he would make it disappear, and he would pull it out from behind my ear, or he would swallow it, and he would pull it out of his belly button. Mind blown when you're 6 years old, let me tell you. I would take the egg, I'd put it behind my back, I'd shove it into my back pocket, I'd come out with my hands empty, I'd go, "Look, Pap, the egg's gone." He would always act so impressed. It wasn't until several years later that I discovered that it was love and not astonishment that he offered me upon the egg's disappearance, but I digress. My grandfather passed away when I was 8 years old. And I didn't really know what that meant. You know, death is difficult enough of a topic for an adult to grasp, let alone an 8-year-old kid. We were at my grandma's house after the funeral, and on my way out the door, she stopped me. She went over to the table next to his chair. She opened the drawer. She pulled out the marble egg. She came back and she gave it to me to keep. She said, "Michael, I want you to take this home and I want you to practice so that you can be just like Pap." This is it. It wasn't until several years later that I discovered that this egg is quite literally the only article of my grandfather's that she parted with after his death. And so I did. I took it home and I practiced. And I practiced and I practiced and I practiced. And I checked out piles and piles of magic books from the library. And my parents were like, "Well, at least he's reading." A library is like YouTube for older people. I finally figured out what it was. It was a coin trick. He did it with the egg, though. It's called the French drop. Some of you may do the French drop. Some of you may not know that that's what it's called, but you do it anyway. I learned how to do the French drop so I could take the egg, make it disappear. Without putting it behind my back, of course. Thanks. Now, you know... Thanks. There's another thing that my grandfather would do with his egg, and to this day, honestly, I have absolutely no idea how it was done. Sometimes he would take the egg and give it a squeeze, and he would turn it into a lemon. No idea. I would always say the same thing. I go, "Pap, that's the most incredible trick I've ever seen. You got to teach that to me." And he pushes glasses up the bridge of his nose, and he goes, "Well, what's it worth to you?" I said, "I don't know, Pap. I'll give you all the money I got in the whole world. I'll empty my piggy bank. I'll borrow $100 from Dad. Anything. You just got to teach it to me." And he would smile. And he would pat me on the head. Then he would hand me the lemon. He'd say, "You know, it's worth about $100. The lemon, not the secret." Well, it wasn't until several years later that I figured out exactly what he meant by that. You still there, Ellis? Good. With the aid of the house lights, would you join me at the side of the stage, please? You might want to see this. that out of there, Ellis. Open that up. Confirm for the audience that that is in fact a $100 bill. And more importantly, and also quite specifically, that that $100 bill has your name on it. If it does, hold it up. They will go crazy. Take a look at that. That says Ellis. Ladies and gentlemen, don't go away just yet, Ellis. I don't want you putting a Lemony Fresh bill back in your wallet like that. I'll give it to you in a nice little carrying case. Ellis will be at the back of the theater for about an hour after the show, signing autographs, taking pictures. Thank you very much, Ellis.